Okay, welcome everyone. I'm really excited about this event today. I've got with me Stephanie Pinto. Stephanie is an emotional intelligence coach. Stephanie, if you want to introduce yourself, how did you start doing it and everything? Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
I am going to make sure that I don't waffle on because sometimes I get too involved and passionate about what I talk about. You know that. But I'll give you guys a little bit of a background as to the work I do with parents and kids. So I'm an emotional intelligence parent coach, as Magdalena said. And what that really means is I help parents, usually stressed out parents, to learn different ways to connect and communicate with their kids so that they can bring down that sort of bring more calm and connection to the home, help their kids to manage big emotions, challenging behaviors, set boundaries, and have that kind of two-way respect and communication. So it really just helps. I always say it helps the vibe and the connection and the energy at home, because it can be stressful, especially with COVID, with everything that's changing with schooling or homeschooling or parents being at home or working from home. It does help that sort of stressed, sometimes zoo-like feeling that we can have at home. And even though it's doing that work now for us, when we start to develop our emotional intelligence, it actually is paving the way for our kids in the future. So they will grow up, become teenagers or adults into their 20s, and potentially parents who are more emotionally intelligent. And so I'll go through what that means as well. So a bit of the background, I guess, is that for 10 years I was a speech pathologist. So I worked with kids and families around developing communication and language skills and social skills that went along with it too. And I found that although that was important, I realized that actually of more benefit, and parents more were asking me, how do I manage my kids' big emotions? How do I navigate these behaviors that my kids are having? It's so stressful. So along the way, I had discovered emotional intelligence in my last few years of being a speechy. And I realized, I thought, oh my goodness, why aren't we doing this for our kids straight off the bat? Why aren't we talking about it at home and in schools and things like that? So I know there are some amazing schools now, more sort of forward-thinking or progressive open schools that are looking at things like emotional self-awareness and mindfulness and relaxation and calming and things like that. But I just remember thinking we should be doing this with our kids. So I, long story short, got certified as an emotional intelligence coach and put my my background working with kids and families into that sort of flavor of understanding emotions and navigating them. And along the way got certified as an anxiety coach for kids as well, because I mean, we probably know a bunch of kids, if not our own, maybe some other kids, nieces, nephews, and kids at school who have that kind of tendency to be more anxious or not resilient or not confident. So that's sort of where I'm sitting now, being able to share this stuff with everyone online and parents. And like I said, sometimes I have to rein myself in because I'm talking to I know, it doesn't resonate with everyone, but for some people it really hits that chord of, I don't like the parent I am. Perhaps I feel like I'm that cranky, shouty, snappy parent, or I feel like I can't connect with my kids. They don't listen to me. Why are they acting like this? I have to tell them 5 times to do something. So that's where this is kind of where the gold is, where I get excited and I think, cool, I can help. It doesn't have to be like that. So I'm lucky that I kind of feel like I've cracked the code with a bit of that framework or parenting manual or that game plan that does work. So that's a bit.
Awesome. No, I love what you do and I love all the courses I'm doing with you. So it's been great. And so how to raise emotionally intelligent kids? The big question.
Yes. Yeah. So I feel like I need to explain a little bit about emotional intelligence first, because it's still a bit like a weird new term, even though it has been around for a while. It's not it's not like, okay, how to teach your kids confidence, or it's like, what is emotional intelligence? What does it mean? So if I give you the boring definition and we'll make sense of it, it's to be aware of your own emotions and those of others, other people, in the moment, and to be able to use that information to guide your behavior, your actions, make good decisions, and really get the best out of relationships with those around you. So it's kind of that, like, you can see there's that ability to be aware of your own emotions and what that is meaning for you, how it affects when you show up as a parent, but also being aware of other people's emotions. So that might be your partner or your spouse or your kids, extended family, friends, and things like that. So it's really like emotional intelligence 101 is kind of raising your self-awareness around, wow, I have these habits and I have these patterns, and I tend to, let's say if my kids make a mistake or stuff up or damage something, I tend to snap, I tend to flip my lid, I tend to say, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Are you serious? Get in your room, blah, 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 or whatever it is. So we all have those habits and patterns, and it's like a little bit yucky when you realize, oh my God, I sound like my mother. But it is good to raise your awareness of how you're showing up as a parent, and how your emotional state or your mood really impacts how you connect with your kids, how you react or respond when something happens. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, emotional intelligence. Within that kind of umbrella, things like of emotional intelligence are things like, obviously, emotional self-awareness, knowing your emotions, behavioral self-control. So also managing the times when you really feel like you want to flip your lid and shout, or
me today in the morning.
Yes. So we have many opportunities. I always say opportunities every day to be able to work on this stuff, or shift it, or change it, or take a different path than what we used to do. So communication, resilience is a huge one with kids, with adults as well. Communication, resilience, empathy is a huge part of emotional intelligence. But yeah, managing impulses and emotional regulation, and that kind of situational awareness, that awareness of other people in the situation, how to navigate. If I'm coming home and I've had a stressful day, out and about or at work, and then I'm coming home trying to get dinner on the table, the in-laws come over, it's really noisy, the kids haven't done their homework. When I'm at this heightened state of emotion, like, how do I show up as a parent? I'm usually like, we might be snappy, shouty. Our kids will do something that on another day we'd say, oh, buddy, come on, clean it up, be more careful. But on this day we go, right, you've just made this mess, get in your room. Like, it really can massively change how we show up and what energy we bring to the interaction, right? So I feel like I sort of answered that question. Does that make sense? So
it makes sense to me. Yeah.
I guess that's a bit about emotional intelligence and what it is. There's a lot of different ways that we can raise emotionally intelligent kids, and I always say it is not rocket science. It is nothing that it's nothing that's not out on Google. I put out YouTube videos. There's lots of videos from different parent coaches and emotional intelligence specialists about how to do this. But in a nutshell, it's everyday experiences and interactions with your kids, and just navigating those in potentially a different way to what you are now. So some of the things that, I guess, one thing that I want to get across, and I usually talk about this kind of first up if I'm doing a talk or a workshop or something, I'll say, if we want to raise emotionally intelligent kids, first we have to become emotionally intelligent parents. It's probably the same with fitness, right? If you want to create that culture of fitness and healthy eating and things like that in your family, it's kind of hard to do if you're not embodying that, right?
Yeah. Lead by example.
Yeah, lead by example. And you can't give what you don't have. So in terms of emotions and behavior, if something goes wrong and they stuff up, and we blow up and we shout and we send them to their room, or we smack, or we handle it in one certain way, our kids are bloody hell, every day we are modeling to them. We don't even realize it. They are such experiential learners. So they will be planting little seeds unknowingly when they are watching how we react or respond to a situation. So it's really hard sometimes when you are triggered. And that's something we obviously go through in emotional intelligence, knowing your triggers, seeing them coming, being able to circumnavigate them or avoid them altogether or lessen the impact. But being able to respond rather than react is a massive one, so that you can be modeling to your kids when something goes wrong, this is how we respond, or this is what we can do about it, rather than this is how I act. Because they're going to see, wow, if something goes wrong, what we do is we shout and we blow up and we name call, or we whatever it is, you know what I mean? So that is kind of one of the first big steps, is to look at how you might be able to develop your own emotional intelligence, and look at the way, like I bloody had to do it every day. I'm still doing it. I'm far from perfect, and I'm always thinking, how am I showing up for my kids? What am I modeling for them? If I make a mistake, how do I manage that? Do I squash it down, ignore it, or do I say, guys, you know, oh my gosh, I kind of burnt the toast this morning. Actually, I did that this morning and I showed them how I was annoyed. I was a bit disappointed, and that was okay. And I said, you know what, though, there's always a way to solve a problem, even if it means I'm going over the bin and I'm going scrape, 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 scrape for the top layer of the burnt toast. And my kids were like, oh, cool. And like, it's nothing, like I said, rocket sciencey or amazing, but it is little tiny, we're planting those seeds, or we're building those bricks every day for years. We have our kids for years until they fly the nest, but even then we still have that connection with them, where we can teach them about managing emotions and things like that. So that's kind of one of the first big how to raise emotionally intelligent kids is that self-awareness about your own patterns and habits and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it starts with us, definitely. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You have to lead by example. So for instance, like when you gave that example, like when you rushing home and you have to make dinner, you've got in-laws coming and your kids pushing your buttons and they do something and you just want to explode, as if, you know, your first reaction, what you could do differently.
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's heaps to unpack there. And literally, you were on the call last night where you did have the in-laws over, because my in-laws have my daughter, my youngest, on Wednesdays, and it's a busy afternoon. They come home, we usually cook dinner together and we all eat. And my son in particularly is so excitable and gets riled up, and there's a lot of energy happening. And then it's time we eat, and then my husband's parents head out for the night, and then we calm the kids down and we might do the shower or bath or something. And I was like trying to get ready for a Zoom at 8 o'clock. And, you know, I'm just quite cognizant moment to moment of where my levels of emotion are, because I know that, oh my God, when I'm frazzled and I'm rushed and I've got all these thoughts running through my head, got to be on the Zoom, have I printed the workbook, do I want to like all these things, I'm bringing that frustrated, frazzled, rushed energy to the interaction. And guess what that does to the kids? Like it doesn't bring them back down, does it? So I'm kind of mindful of that. Again, that self-awareness of how am I feeling? Am I feeling rushed? And also kind of to tack onto that, and this goes with anything at home, anything with the kids or any routine, what is really important here? Like, what do I value here? What's most important? What are the things I want to get out of this situation? What is the ideal outcome? And is that realistic? Like, do I really want the kids on this every Wednesday night to be in bed by 8 o'clock? Can that be flexible? So I'm checking my own emotions, obviously, but I'm also thinking, what's the most important thing? Can they miss out on reading a book tonight? Not missing out, for me personally, not missing out on brushing teeth, make sure they do that. But everyone is different. So looking at what is really important here, and how am I showing up? What am I bringing? So I'm usually like, I'm encouraging and helping the kids when I don't just say, you do this, hurry up, get that, put your pajamas on, because it never helps. It just creates a cyclone or a power struggle. And so I'm modeling to the kids that we need to hurry up. Let me help you. I do have, this is the time and I've got to be somewhere. So I'm not just saying, oh, that's fine, I'll help you, we've got all the time in the world, because we don't. And we have to have those boundaries with our kids. I've talked a lot about how we balance things like independence and autonomy with boundaries for our kids. And then, so looking at what's important and then helping them, and thinking, okay, well, if I'm not, like, people are understanding. If I don't get dinner on the table at this certain time, is that such a big deal? If I don't quite have all the things and we just have, rather than lasagna and salad and a pasta thing, if I just put the lasagna on the table and tonight that's enough. Like, last night, the kids came in here and I had to go out and wipe a bottom and come back in. And I was like, you know what? It's not ideal, but everyone's going to understand. No one's going to be like, well, she was just so unprofessional, So kind of taking that step back and thinking, what's important? It's important that I want to connect with my kids, that I don't bring that frazzled, negative energy, because I know how that ends. And my sort of ideal outcome is I want to leave them happy and calm and relaxed, ready to go to bed, maybe in bed or maybe just playing quietly in their room, so that I can come on here and do my work. So I think those are the key kind of things with modeling to the kids, how we can manage our emotions moment to moment, even if there is a deadline or we do have to get somewhere. Being able to kind of just go ride the waves, I think, rather than trying to have everything perfect, everything done, everyone in bed at the right time. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And one thing which came up, which I actually wrote down, when you say, let me help you. So sometimes when there is a deadline and we are in a rush, like in the morning when you're trying to get out of the door and they do not want to get dressed or wherever, sometimes we just get angry. And what would be helpful and would calm down the situation, say, let me help you. We are in a rush. Let me help you. Instead of, come on, put those shoes on right now. How many times I told you, put the shoes on? How many times? You know, just say, okay, let me help you. Let's go. Get your shoes. Let's put your shoes on. It will take so much quicker.
Yes, I think sometimes, and I get this question a lot, I think sometimes parents feel that it is taking steps, it's going 3 steps backwards if they help their kids put their socks and shoes on, or help them pack their bag or their lunchbox, or sometimes help them eat, help them in the shower. They have these beliefs and these paradigms around kids this certain age should be able to do this on their own. I shouldn't have to help you. I don't help your younger brother. Why should I help you? So all these shoulds. We have it around everything, and they're so crap. They're so like toxic, because we get caught up in these belief systems, and they're usually created from when we were younger, how we were parented in our childhood. And we kind of hold on to them unconsciously. So we stick to those, and then we have these unwritten rules that we sort of have these rules or these expectations here. And when our kids don't meet them and they constantly sort of fail, or they don't meet our expectations and they're reaching and they just can't because of whatever, many reasons, we get frustrated and we think, come on, I'm keeping this bar up here. You should be able to do it. I saw you do it last week. You got your socks on and your shoes on and your bag packed. Why can't you do it too? I'm not helping you. And then, like, where does that leave? Wow, isn't it so common? And it's such an easy mentality to be in, because we're the adults. We have the deadlines. We know much more about the concept of time and how long it takes to drive to school, and then I got to get home and be on Zoom. Our kids don't have that, so. And I know we talk a lot about how our kids' brains are under construction, so we need to be aware of that and understand and be more empathetic and tolerant. But sometimes that is a huge reminder with routines, getting ready in the morning, going to bed. And like you said, I've told you 5 times, why are you still doing it? It's exactly that stuff.
And if I just help him, it would be just once. Okay, I don't have time to repeat. Let's help you and let's go.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean you're going to be helping them every day. Oh my God, we're going 10 steps backwards. I'm going to have to help you. It might mean that today, for some reason you're tired, you are having an off day, you haven't had enough sleep, or there's a test coming up, you're nervous about it, your brain is under construction, you're still developing this skill. If we do it once or twice, or if it doesn't, it's not going to mean that, wow, I've undone this habit and I'm always going to have to help you. No, it's stuff like, I always think, would I do this for my husband? Would he do it for me? Babe, can you go and get this on the way home? Or can you get that? I'm like, yeah, sure. It doesn't mean every day he's going to be like, well, now that's your role. But we do things for each other. It's just that with our kids, we have this mentality that if I help you too much, you're going to latch onto it.
Well, let's talk quickly about the brain, because I found it really helpful from when I did your session to learn that first thing, kids under 3, one part of the brain hasn't developed yet.
Yeah.
And even when they're older, so the brain doesn't develop fully till we like 25.
Yeah.
So, and those should, like for instance, Liam, you should at this age understand that you need to do this or that. And also knowing that even though because their brain is still developing, even though they've been doing certain thing every day on tick, and one day they just forget, and we're like, why did you do it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's talk quickly about the brain.
Ooh, I love this stuff. And just quickly, let's nip it in a 2-minute bud. You are so right. Even though our kids can do something on one day, it doesn't mean they can always do it. So same for us. We have a fully developed neocortex. Like our whole brain is developed because we're over the mid-20s, most of us. And when there are still days when I know I can be really organized. I have my to-do list, so I can get everything done, or I can be really empathetic with my kids and I can be patient, tolerant. There are other days when I'm like, stuff it. I can't be, like, there are days that I can't do things or I don't do things, and I know I can. So it's the same for our kids. We can't always have this like bar set for them, right? And as you were saying, yes, about our kids' brain development, when we have that foundational understanding of that our kids' brains are under construction, particularly the prefrontal cortex, which is really where all the complex thinking skills are. So planning, organizing, reflecting on behavior, emotional regulation, impulse control, empathy, morality, logic, reasoning. There's literally, so many complex thinking skills that are underdeveloped or still developing in our kids, right? And as you said, mid-20s is when the brain is developed. Every time I ask that in a talk or a workshop or something, I say, when do you guys think it is? And people will say, 18, 19, 20. I'm like, like not really. It's higher. So it's, yes, it just knowing that, let's say we have a 5-year-old or even a 10-year-old, have a think about like what percentage of their brain has like been developed and is ready to go and is, mastered, and what is missing. Like, of course, we're going to have to remind them, tell them 5 times. Of course, they're going to get in trouble for something today when they just got in trouble for the same thing last week. Like, so a lot of that stuff, the neuroscience with our kids, if we don't have that understanding, we're behind the 8 ball and we get so confused and frustrated and triggered when their behavior is, more often than not, unless our kids have a developmental delay, language delay, condition like autism or something, more often than not, it's typical kid behavior. They're learning the lay of the land and they're trying to figure out, how to control themselves and do things and meet our expectations. But we just, we've got to be understanding and compassionate. So yeah.
What helped me a lot is lowering my expectations, because we having like had issues with Liam behavior for a long time, and just knowing like, because other child at this age is behaving the same way, that doesn't mean that Liam should be the same. So like lowering my expectations. And I love like what I've learned in your session is like, we don't expect 1-year-old to, shout at them, why are you not walking just yet?
Yeah.
Your brother walked at that time. So that's that. I love that when there's a baby delay, we like, well, every child develops differently, but then when they're older, we just expect them to be a certain way because they're 7, they're 8, they're 9.
Yeah. And it's like, why do we, for some reason, we all do that, and we feel when they get to some certain age, I don't know if it's like preschool or school age, and we lose that whole patience and tolerance and understanding of kids developing at different rates. So like you said, the baby walking, that's a slide, and as in a slide that I always put up in my talks and my workshops. And I say, this is a skill that our kids have to develop and practice and hone. They get it wrong, they stumble, they fall, they screw it up. And we are really compassionate. We say, come on, let me hold your hands, I'll guide you, I'll help you, you haven't got this yet, it's okay, like, you've got time. We don't say, oh my God, get in your room, you're so naughty, you haven't learned to walk yet, everyone else who's 12 months around you is walking, I don't want to see that, get out of my sight. So it's the same with an emotional skill. Like, this is another skill, even though it's not a physical one, it's an emotion, it's a cognitive skill. I mean, so is walking. But so to be able to have that, the emotional self-control, the regulation, controlling those impulses, expressing how we feel verbally appropriately rather than aggressively, that's a cognitive skill. Our kids gradually develop that. Sometimes I don't even have that, and I'm an adult, like, I blow up, so having that same mentality of, you haven't got this yet, that was a really tough thing, you blew up and you stuffed up or you melted down, I've got you, it's okay, I'm on your team, I've got your back, let me help you, what can we do next time if this happens again, what else could you say and do, because I can't let you hit or kick or whatever it is. So I love that too.
So you start talking about kicking and hitting. So let's talk about boundaries, because there's a common, I think, misconception when people think, if I don't punish my kids, if I talk about feelings, that means I need to be weak.
Yeah.
And that means they just walk all over me. So let's talk about boundaries, because boundaries are actually very important.
They are, yes. So there is a balance, and I sort of touched on it before, between, we know that our kids are like yearning for independence and autonomy, doing things themselves, having choice, having control, and making their own decisions. And so we want to allow and we want to give them as much of that as possible. And again, that comes to our beliefs and paradigms, like, what can we let our kids do with around the house, or healthy risk taking and stuff like that. So what can we allow? But then also on the other side, we 1000% need to balance that with clear, firm, but loving boundaries. Because when we don't have that balance, if we have way too many boundaries, and this happened with a friend of mine that I went to school with, and her parents were so strict, they couldn't go out, couldn't have boyfriends, and then again, a reduction in that independence. Like, they just absolutely, when they hit teenage years, the family, like, there was 4 girls, and they just really pushed against that. And you will find your kids, when you have too many boundaries and not enough independence, they will push, and they will, it's so natural, it's not to be taken personally, but that's what's going to happen, it's human behavior. So balancing that, and what boundaries mean, to me at least, is that we have, for ourselves, we have to be clear on what our boundaries are, and the rules, or the unwritten rules, and say, hey, okay, what is acceptable and what is not for our family? This comes down to, like, having it, if you've got a partner, chat to them about your values and what's important. Where do you draw the line? Is shouting okay when your kids are really cranky and angry and frustrated about something, but is hitting or kicking not? Name calling or whatever, like insults. And so, where everyone's different, I can't say, so these are the boundaries and these are not. Like, you guys will decide what boundaries are true to you and your family, because when you do that, it's sustainable. You can reinforce them with no qualms, and you have that conviction and clarity, because you know your why and why it's important to you, right? So I think balancing the independence and the boundaries, and being able to, I don't like the word enforce, because it kind of seems really like negative or authoritarian, but backing up and instilling the boundaries in the moment, and learning ways to do that, learning your game plan, the scripts, what you're going to say, how you're going to manage the pushback or the resistance, i.e. the complaining and the please, why not? Like, if there's a boundary around like no ice cream before dinner kind of thing, then how you deal with when there's the complaint, because it's going to happen. Like, welcome it, accept it, anticipate it. Our kids are naturally going to see what they can get push a little bit far. Maybe it wasn't a boundary before, so they're going to see if it's so natural. And we don't have to take it personally, but we need to have that conviction with our boundaries so that our kids grow up to be kind, understanding, empathetic, resilient adults. So
Cool.
huge.
Yeah. Can we talk about what's the difference between punishment and consequence?
Yes, good one. Good question. So I was doing a bit of research into discipline and punishment and things over the last couple of weeks. And interestingly, I found, and I think I showed it wherever I put it out online, that the definition of punishment has now discipline has now become synonymous with punishment and curbing naughty behavior. So if you like look it up in Google or the dictionary, it's really aligned to punishment, discipline. Discipline actually comes from the word and the meaning around to teach and instruct our kids. So to guide them and teach them about, hey, these are inappropriate behaviors, these are appropriate. We can't allow our kids to, if they get angry at somebody or frustrated, to tip everything off their desk or to scratch or hit. So there needs to be definitely consequences, and we need to be able to discipline our kids. And by that, I mean teach them and kind of emotion coach or coach them through, when you're really angry, this is what you can do about it. Let's come up with some ideas. These are some coping strategies if you are anxious or sad or any of the many emotions that there are. So I always kind of look at it. It's frustrating when people talk about discipline and talk about punishment and timeout and things like that. I mean, we don't have to go into the oodles of research that shows that timeout is actually ineffective for curbing or guiding kids' behavior. Because again, we want to come back to, I want to teach my kids and coach them and guide them about why this is inappropriate, why you can't slap your sister if she takes your texters, or why you can't shout at daddy when he says, no, we can't go to the park, it's raining, or you know what I mean? So it's a big topic and lots to go into, but there is interesting to look at that difference. We need consequences, but we don't need to punish.
So how would you explain, so with consequence, that what I found that lots of my clients, when I talk to them, this is the favorite topic to talk about during personal training sessions is kids, that it's hard for them to think about consequence without punishment. So they say, oh, if they did something wrong, okay, you're not watching TV.
Yeah.
So that's punishment. So would be consequence, for instance, if they... Oh, I actually can explain what I did with Liam. Maybe that was going to be more helpful. So with Liam and Paige. So my kids love to argue in the car, and it's dangerous. They scream. I need to look back, and it's really annoying. So, and it happened so many times. I was just one day like, what do I do? Because not watching TV didn't help.
Yeah.
So what I thought, it was like, okay. I said to them, well, driving is too dangerous when you scream. So I'm not going to be driving anywhere I don't have to. So, well, I have to drive you to school, but I don't have to drive you to play date. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to take you to the shop. I don't have to take you to Daddy's cafe. So if you're going to shout in the car, we're not going anywhere this weekend. And we didn't go. So the punishment was really in my head, not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I make it as a consequence of the action, because you are arguing.
Yeah.
Then in a car, it's too dangerous, so we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So my question would be, how did they go with that? Was that meaningful to them, and did that like click with them?
That worked. Every time they in a car now starting arguing, I'm just like, can you remember what happened last time?
Yeah. There you go. And they remember.
Too dangerous to drive. That actually worked like magic, I have to say.
Yeah, because so the reason that stuff worked is because I wouldn't even call that punishment. That's a natural consequence.
Yeah.
So again, that punishment has got that negative connotation, but you gave a natural consequence. It wasn't like, wow, you guys are so loud and naughty in the car that we're not going to Macca's on the weekend for pancakes, like I said.
Yeah.
It's not, we fall into traps when we set consequences that are not planned, and they're just like in the moment, spontaneous. And then you think, oh my God, like no iPad for a week, I'm going to die. You're going to die, I'm going to die. So
Yeah.
you set consequences that were realistic. They were natural consequences. It's almost like, highlighting and teaching our kids that if you hit people when you get upset and cranky, if you hit your friends at preschool or school, they're not going to want to play with you anymore. They're going to stay away. They're going to avoid you. You're going to lose friends. And I know that sounds, you probably wouldn't say it exactly like that because it sounds harsh, but that's a natural consequence. We can't hide or shelter our kids from that. We have to be able to say, hey, when you keep doing this behavior, it's cause and effect. And that's logic. And our kids, we know their brain is under construction. They just don't quite get that yet. Or they might understand a bit of it and then forget it next time they're at school because they get emotionally hijacked and boom, they just, whatever it is. So natural consequences, realistic consequences, relevant consequences, and something that makes it meaningful for them. So when you were explaining that, I was like, that sounds like it's going to work. And then I asked the question, you said, yeah, it actually really did work. The kids got the message. And sometimes, I suppose because I'm quite aware and this is my work and what I love, I'm really in the midst of it every day. I will take the time to connect with my kids and say, guys, because this is happening, what's going to happen next? Like, what do you think if we keep going like this and I'm driving the car and then I have to turn around and ask you to be quiet because what's going to happen? Like, I will, if it was me, and maybe you did, if it got so much, I would take the time to find the next turn off and pull over and turn around and say, guys, we need to have a chat. This is absolutely so dangerous. The fact that you, and explain it. And rather than we often want to do a quick little, just be quiet, I'll talk to you later. Don't ask me now, I'm driving. But when we take that extra, sometimes it might be, okay, that might be a 5-minute thing because you got to pull over the car. You might be late somewhere. Is that okay with you? Now, for a lot of the time, it's fine with me if I'm a few minutes late because this stuff is meaningful for me. And I know it's shaping my kids' way of being and their mentality and their emotional intelligence now into the future. So I do take that time. There are times when I'm like, I've got to be at work, and I'm just, I'm human. But yeah, getting ready in the morning and kids faffing around or going to bed, we always I feel like our kids are telling us to slow down, and we have time. That's all we have time. Can I be a bit late? Can I just turn off all the dinner, stop cooking and go and be with them and explain or problem solve, separate, and whatever is going on. That to me is, we are shaping our kids' way of being into the future in a very different way than when we say, show me later, I'm busy, I don't want to, not now, just be quiet, right into your rooms, separate, done, go. That is not kind of teaching and shaping our kids and guiding them, right? So
there's no quick fix. Basically, if we want to do it right, we need to take time.
Yes, exactly.
That's the thing. So I think what's really important word is in the difference between punishment and consequence. It's the consequence actually is relevant to the action just happened.
Yeah.
Punishment is just out of the blue. Okay, no pocket money, no TV. Whereas consequence is you can kind of push. I pushed it a little bit. I made it relevant to what happened. So I think that's what lots of people have an issue with when they think about consequence. But how I can make a natural consequence of this action? Well, you can kind of push it. You just have to make it relevant to what just happened instead of just making an out of the blue.
Yeah.
Punishment, really.
And actually, I love how you said that, because it made me think about consequence versus punishment. What is the driving force? What is underpinning that, or what's under the surface? If we talk about the iceberg mentality, which we won't. But with punishment, the driving force usually is that we're bloody pissed off and we want to make them we want to nail it, hammer it in so that you never treat your sister like that. Go to your room, don't come out till dinner. It actually makes us feel a little bit good because we've laid down the law, we've stopped the behavior, and we've punished them. It is
We've got the power.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And so there is a little bit of that like spark that comes. So it's dangerous if we continually, if that's our go-to. Consequence is what's driving this is I want my kids to understand what's appropriate and what's not. I want them, like I'm doing this for them so that they have friends when they go to school, so that they get picked to be on a team, so that the teacher likes them and takes an interest in them and helps them develop academically and socially. And so that when they're 20, people want to hire them in a job interview. So it's giving that natural consequence, which is it's leading, it's helping shape them into confident, resilient, empathetic adults, rather than just trying to nip it in the bud and squash the behavior and not looking beneath the surface. So yeah, I love that you said that.
Cool. I've got one more last question. So when I talk to my clients, they often actually wear the same shoes as I was. So I was on board with, conscious parenting and raising kids other way, kind of without punishment. It's usually the hubby who's not on board. Especially when there is a boy in a family. I think when there's a girl, it's a bit different. When there's a boy in a family, then, the boys can't do this. They can't cry. They should do this. They can't show feelings. Yeah. So how to get hubby on board when you want raise your kids to be emotionally intelligent kids?
Yeah, that is.
Any tips?
I
made my husband.
I get asked that a lot. And I coach most of the mums. I would probably coach 80% mums and 20% mums and dads together. And that's a massive question that comes up because it can cause a lot of stress and frustration. And it's that mismatch of like beliefs and paradigms and the shoulds and the expectations, right? So sometimes I'm going to like paint them with a brush. Sometimes dads want their kids to be confident, resilient, but tough, and what that means for their emotional expression in times when they're sad, lonely, stressed, angry, frustrated. And us mums have sometimes a different approach or a different mentality, and it's a mindset, isn't it? So when people say to me, how do I get my husband or my partner to be on board and do what I'm doing? Then I kind of have to ask carefully some questions around, well, let's have a look at your beliefs and your expectations and your shoulds and have a look at what his are, right? So even just knowing, there's a beautiful quote, and I hope I'm not going to stuff it up, but it's that there is your way and there is my way. As for the one way or the right way, it does not exist. I think I got that. So don't ask me who said it, but that whole concept of we have our different ways to connect with our kids, even though we feel our way is the right way because we're not squashing our boys' emotions, for example, to respect that our partner or the person with a different perspective has a different, usually they have a different upbringing. They were parented very differently. They had a different childhood. I've also had some dads say, well, I turned out pretty good. And I'm like, you did. I'm not arguing that. So in a way, how to manage that is to be aware of your paradigms and your beliefs, and that they are different. They're not better as much as we think that they are, but they're not better. They are just different. Respecting, let's say it's your husband, respecting where he is at in his parenting journey. So a lot of the time I find, this is just personally, I find that mums are doing the heavy lifting. They're around kids more often than the husband. And they are also potentially doing the reading and the learning, watching YouTube, going to webinars, doing things like this.
Yep.
So they are, if you imagine a bit like rungs on a ladder, mum might be at the 10th rung of understanding about kids, neuroscience, emotions, behavior, development, and things like that. Dad has only kind of gotten onto the 3rd rung of the ladder. He hasn't had the experience, the life experience, or the parenting experience, or the research and the learning that mum has. So looking at that in terms of course, he will make the decisions and say the things that he says because he is at that level. It's really hard for me to explain. Sometimes I stuff it up. So is this making sense that like of course, we're going to respond differently to our kids because we know differently. I won't say we know better, but dad, for example, of course, he's going to maybe get emotionally hijacked more often. He's going to have those triggers and not be able to manage them as easily. He hasn't learned otherwise or done the work or hasn't seen there is a different way to do things. Do you know what I mean? So it's
totally.
I always say you can only control yourself and how you show up and how you act. It's very difficult to say, so I've just been reading this and now we should be doing this and get on board. And when little Jack says this, you need to do that. More often than not, it pushes the other person away because they take it as a bit of an attack on their parenting or their themselves, because we tie our parenting to our sense of identity very closely. So I just say, focus on your own, what's the saying, like focus on your own little ship and what you're doing with your kids. And more often than not as well, the results or the shift and the transformation in you and your kids will happen anyway. And then sometimes the other parent looks in and says, wow, that would have been a massive melt. He would have melted down over that a few weeks ago. What'd you do there? Like, he's a different kid, or you guys are it's been really good this week. It's been really calm, hasn't it? And then that opens up the conversation. But it's it's a journey.
Yeah, it is. Okay, we've been almost here for an hour. We're supposed to be 30 minutes. Great chat. I won't be holding you for much longer. So if you can tell ladies where they can find you if they want to learn more about you and how to work with you.
Yes, I would love to. So I also have a Facebook group called Let's Raise Emotionally Intelligent Kids. And I would love any of you guys to hop on over and check out the group, because I'm always posting tips and information strategies and things like that on how we can raise emotionally intelligent kids.
I might pop the link to the group in comments.
That would be awesome. Thank you. So head on over and join that. You can obviously friend me on Facebook. I would love to connect and chat over Messenger if you have any questions. You can also find lots more information on my website, which is just stephaniepinto.com. And I'm on YouTube as well. So you can find, if you're one who doesn't like to read blogs and articles, which are on my website, and you want to more like watch or listen along, you can head over to YouTube, and maybe we'll put the links in so everyone can connect.
Cool. Awesome. And if you've got any questions for Steph, you can pop them always in comments under the video. Steph is in this group as well, so I'm sure she'll be happy to answer.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.